Thank you guys for voicing your interest in my training journey because I truly believe that learning does not end at any point aside from death. I think it's not proven yet. I don't know, maybe we'll learn something that you can learn after death. But anyways, I last minute decided to jump in on a USCCA Valhalla Firearms training class, going purely as a student, not as media. But I tried to share the gear I used, how that turned out, why I chose it, as well as anything that I learned in particular for personal growth, both for journalism for my own sake and for you guys. There is an article over on gbgunsdepot.com that outlines all of this clearly, but sign of the times, people watch videos more than they read. So here's the video version of it. What you'll see are the guns that I took, the holster I used, ammo, eye protection, ear protection, and the belt, as well as lessons learned, and some random thoughts off the side, because that's what you get when you get a GB Guns video. I don't script these things, I just flow. To start, what was the class? USCCA, which I'm a member, but not an affiliate. I'm not paid by them, not employed by them. Just to be clear, I have a membership. Has a great network of certified instructors, USCCA certified instructors, and they post for you classes, both USCCA classes and not USCCA classes, but run by certified instructors on their website. And you can look up a zip code and find out what's near you, and that's pretty cool because admittedly, as much as destination training, like going to Gunsight or Thunder Ranch or waiting for one of the circuit trainers to come somewhere near your area, requires a lot more planning, resources, time, money, etc., and isn't something we can always get to. So this is a great way to get a little extra training on the side, and that's what I decided to do. The class was described, and I've got the actual word-for-word description in the article, as an intermediate handgun course to focus on controlling during speed, red dot usage, things like that, but it was oriented to be concealed carry, use a dot, and of course the instructors were two guys that I wanted to learn from. One of them, Michael Stanger, who's been running the USCCA, at least the two of the member nights that I've been to in the area, which are fun, and he's very knowledgeable. And the other guy was Valhalla Firearms Training, who is a retired Green Beret. Green Berets, by mission, one of their capabilities and one of their taskings is to train indigenous people to fight in the interest of the U.S. So that means they have to know things and know how to teach things. Combined, it sounded like a pretty promising class. So let's go over the gear selection. In this article, I did link to where you can search for training in your area. They are USCCA certified instructors are on there, but not all the classes that are on there are USCCA. Some of them are joint, some of them are just, this is an instructor that we vouch for, and his or her listings. It's pretty cool stuff. So this was to be an intermediate level handgun course focusing on dots. And that's where my conundrum came in, as you may recall, because while I have plenty of dotted guns, none of them are carry guns, at least for me. I don't carry a dot. I don't have enough faith in them yet, and I'm pretty good with irons, so why add a failure point? That's just my personal thing. That doesn't mean I'm anti-dot. So I was looking forward to a chance to experience the dot. This brought me to the gun conundrum. So either I was going to end up with a competition range toy racy type gun that had a dot on it, or I was going to take my carry gun. And since I was going just for personal growth and learning, not going for media, not going, for anything like that, I wanted to have it be a personal growth. And the Bull Armory SAS 2-Tac 4 1/4 has been my cool weather carry gun. Its little brother, the ultralight 3 1/4, is my hot weather carry gun. So I wanted something close to this that had a dot already on it because I decided last minute I was going to go, and that meant the TIsas B9R double stack carry 1911. They are on paper very, very similar. They're both 4 1/4 inch double stack 1911s. They do take different magazines because Bull Armory has higher capacity than the staccato pattern, but I was able to use the Prodigy mags, which are plentiful and very affordable with the TIsas. How did it go? Now, another aspect of that, same holster. Somehow, somewhere, I have misplaced the inside the waistband carry holster that I've been using with that Ball Armory, and that has me very distraught. I don't know where it is, but when I ordered it, I also ordered the outside the waistband, and I knew where it was. And fortunately, it was cool with drizzle and light rain, so I was going to be wearing a jacket anyways. Still had to clear the jacket, so it was still concealment training with that. Lessons learned on the guns. Part of my concern with the TIsas was the ammo that I had in bulk when I last minute decided I was going to do this, was the Sterling Brass 115 grain. You guys may remember this from the 23 load series that I did last summer. This was the winner for least energy. Out of a 4¼ inch barrel, which these also happen to be, 297 foot-pounds. We're talking spicy 380 level energy. Very soft shooting stuff. That brings up a whole nother question that we'll get to later. But I was worried if it was going to run in the TIsas. Now the TIsas had been through What's for Dinner, which included a wide variety of loads. So I took a gamble. And, drum roll, the TIsas ate it. Even with its imperfected kind of binds there, and then binds back on the sear, binds on the way forward. Even with its imperfected action, it was able to run. That may be in part because I was able to have a good grip on it, because I've got large hands and I can really hold on to this thing. But good news was it ran. The traction on the TIsas is not great, and with, let's call them cool or chilled hands that are slightly wet, it was a little bit slippery at times. But that is something that, you know, you can change with stick-on grips, or you can stipple it or do whatever you want. You can change the grip module because it's a double stack 1911. All of that was okay. The trigger on the TIsas perhaps slowed me down a little bit when we tried to go fast. And the reason we went fast is they wanted to work on recoil control. And one of the ways that you force somebody to learn recoil control is longer strings at a high rate of fire. Because a sloppy grip can get you through a couple shots, but will not get you through all the shots. And so, trigger might have slowed me down a little bit. That's something I could have learned, you know, with time. And I say could have because I didn't finish the day with this gun. I love Viridian optics. The Viridian RFX 11 that's on here. I'm not going to muzzle myself. Green dot, you can see there. Love the green dot. I don't like auto adjust red dots, and that's what this is. And I don't like the smaller window, and that's what this is. But it's what was on the gun mounted and zeroed, and it's what fits. And you don't always get your choice of dot pattern of footprint depending on the size of the slide and the gun, which is why I was willing to just run this thing. And I had issues with it. It was flaring brighter and dimmer, kind of randomly between shots. I don't know if a rain droplet was on the sensor, or something like, or maybe it was catching reflection off of brass in the air and that was causing it to change. I don't know what was doing it, but it was not a consistent brightness. And then there were times when it just went away for a shot and was back the next shot. Like during a 6-shot string of fire, I would see like dot, dot, no dot, 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 no dot, randomly. And that was a little bit annoying. And as you may recall, the TIsas' sights were not straight from the factory. And even my big Real Avid sight tool was unable to fix that. So I was dependent on the dot to have decent accuracy with this thing. And when the dot lost reliability and predictability for me, I retired it and went back to the bull. And jumping straight to the bull after a couple hundred rounds to the TIsas, my first shot was a bit high on target, and that's because this gun is so much lighter and the trigger is shorter and lighter. And so the presenting out, building grip, and taking up slack process happens at a different rate with this than it did with the TIsas. But I was able to adjust, and obviously I've got a lot more rounds through this thing, so did really well. And it ran that Sterling pretty quickly, which brings me on to the topic of ammo for training. Ammo. When you go to a training class, usually you're burning a big chunk of ammo. So usually you want to try to, that's when you become more aware of the cost per round and you go for less expensive stuff. I want to caution against that, in that if you don't get a lot of training, it might be better to train with something that feels more like your carry ammo. How necessary is that? I can't say. That's a tough one to call a judgment on. But as I stated when I did the big long review of all those loads, if you go with softer ammo, you will be able to focus more on getting good with the gun without recoil being an issue. It might help you with your accuracy if you tend to jerk the trigger or anticipate recoil or get a little, bothersome. Running some softer stuff can be good. Running softer stuff is bad if the gun's going to get dirty, like super high round count, or you've got a gun that's maybe got a rough action, or your grip isn't that great. Because if your wrist is absorbing energy, that's some of the energy the gun needs to run the slide. So in that case, running hotter ammo can be good. That's higher foot-pounds of energy in the round to help keep the gun running. But then you're going to have more recoil, which may slow you down, may make you anticipate, may make you jerk the trigger. So there's this constant back and forth. The only true solid advice I can give on this is to try something and then try something else and figure out for yourself what works best. For me, I was not trying to game it by running the soft stuff. It's what I had in bulk because it was very affordable. I was glad that it ran. I didn't have any issues with it. There was another student in the class that was running the Sterling steel case in a Glock and having issues with it. Yes, the perfected Glock was starting to choke as it got dirty. But that might have also been all the factors that go into a steel case versus brass, which I've said a million times in the range reviews. So find something affordable. So find something so that you don't cry when you're shooting at the cost per round. So that each bang isn't like, oh man, that's part of the kid's college fund. But don't always stick super soft, and maybe there's a reason to run the hot stuff. There's a reason to run the soft stuff. If you're not sure, run something in the middle. If you are aware of one of the factors that I described, those can help point you in the direction, and that's why I wrote that article, so that you can figure out what load is appropriate for you to be working with. Done with ammo. Onto the belt. Years ago, I used to 3-gun and USPSA and play all those games, and I had fun doing it, and I got into the Geardo stage when you're just trying to buy an advantage or buy an edge, and you end up with those super stiff belts, which are awesome because your draw is the same every time and everything's replicable. And then I was going to front sight all the time because it was free. I had a membership, and I ran that belt a couple times, and it was super easy, but it didn't feel practical. And I'd be standing next to people who were just running street clothes, street gear, and I realized that's probably better training. And then I got home and practiced some of that stuff using a regular belt and learned real quick what I did not want in a belt that was going to be my everyday belt, because the most important draw of your life is likely going to be in street clothes when you're not prepared. I've tried a lot of belts over the years. I've recommended some. My taste has changed. I found some to be too stiff, some to be too soft. It is a personal preference. But what I've been running daily, every day, and now at a few different courses, is the foundation belt from EDC Belt Co. No, I'm not an affiliate of them or anything like that. But this belt is your simple sewn woven, and yeah, this one's multicam black. But it's thicker and stiffer in key areas, and then obviously you can tell beer belly causing the crunch in the back. Softer in some areas, and then it gets stiff again. It's stiff around the front and the sides. So if you carry appendix or if you carry strong side, you've got a stronger part of belt there. And having run this in courses, not only is it what I wear every day, but it works in courses. It's not as good as like a competition belt, but it's a whole lot better than your standard fashion belt. Other things that I've come to like about this, it's super lightweight. It's firm enough for what I need and comfortable enough for wearing every day, but also in travel. This goes through the metal detectors at airports without problems. I've flown all over the US and flown internationally with this belt and never had to take it off at a security checkpoint. Now watch, now I've just cursed myself, and the next time I go I'm going to have to take it off. To the point when they ask if I have a belt, I just say it's good and walk through before they say, but sir, please take it off. I don't know what material this metal is, but it does not set it off. And if you're like me and you've been carrying daily for a long time, chances are you get your pants sized to have that gun tucked in there. And so when you go flying and you're wearing your regular pants, they're a little extra baggy. And when you take your belt off, you run the risk of losing those pants as you walk through and do the please don't look at my nuts scan. So being able to keep my belt on through security has been great. It also saves time. It's one less thing to take off and put on. It's one less thing for everybody else in line to wait for me to take off and put back on. So highly recommend trying one of these. They're pretty good. This is my second one. The first one was one of the early models, and the stitching was done differently, and it started to get fatigued. It is a Velcro belt, and you've got this, I don't know, probably foot-long stretch of Velcro here to adjust to, which I've come to really appreciate, because sometimes you need a little more space, or sometimes you need a little snugger. So that's the belt I ran. Hearing protection, obviously necessity. I have for many years been running some in-ear that are a 3D scan of my ear and then printed for it that fit right in super comfortably. Lots of viewers have said, what are you wearing? It looks like you don't have ear pro. Oh, this CD doesn't have ear pro. No, it just fits really nicely in there. They're great for all-day comfort, but they're not electronic. And when attending a class, in fact, some classes in schools require electronic, and that's so that you can hear what's going on and hear people around you. I've been through lots of sets and recently been trying these Warbirds. They're a new company, and new means no existing habits, so I figured let's give it a try, because it's one of the places where technology does change. They lasted all day, no battery issues there. They did automatically power down, I think after like 5 hours, but I knew they were powering down because they make this sound, and I just reached up and turned them back on. The bass amplification, as in basic, as core starting amplification, is a little bit higher than I care for, but one touch on the minus button turns it down a little bit. And then pretty darn comfortable. The other thing that I liked about them is they come with gel ear pads versus the foam, and that's something that a lot of guys, even on the really expensive electronic hearing protection, end up having to buy aftermarket, and then some of them install easily, some of them don't. These just come with it, and I found that to be pretty comfortable. You're still wearing muffs. It's never going to be as comfortable as something like my custom molded ones, but for muffs, these were great. Next up is eye protection, and this is one of those places where it's difficult to know what you're getting or if your dollar's worth it until you've already spent it, because technically you could go to Harbor Freight and get some safety glasses. Now, are those ANSI C87.1, I think is the rating for eye protection? Who knows? They may be. But my point is, there's a lot of eyewear options out there, and I've tried a lot over the years, and they've been my favorite through that time. Once again, trying the Warbirds, because I got kind of tired of my gaiters. They get heavy after a while, and it's the other bit with those are, if you're not familiar, gaiters are billet aluminum, which is kind of neat and gives them strength and allows you to shape them a little bit, because the aluminum will bend and then hold that shape. The downfall is also temperature sensitivity. They get hot and they get cold if you're not careful. So going back to polymer and trying out these from Warbird, and what I came to like was this right here. Very, very flexible earpieces, which probably combined with those gel pads meant that I didn't get that squeeze spot on my head Wasn't painful, and they're incredibly lightweight, so they didn't bother. And then what really impressed me, and this, just like the frame shape and style, is absolutely a personal preference, but even in here, these smoke lenses are not too dark. And this is totally up to your eyes and up to your region. Because I know when I was in Europe, the Ray-Ban smoke tint was perfect, and then I'd come home to West Coast USA, California namely at the time, and they weren't dark enough. In California, my Oakleys were perfect, but taking Oakleys over to Europe, they were too dark. And so somehow Orbirds figured out something, at least for my eyes and my preference. These smoke lenses are great in overcast, they're great in cloudy, and they're still good on bright sunny days. So that's nice, because with all those other ones, even when I liked that eyewear at the time, eventually the lighting would change outside and get to a point where I had to change lenses or change eyewear to find something that worked. Additionally, these aren't just safety, they're ANSI Z87.1, Z87 Plus, but they are actually rated. They're not just a general safety glass, and they can also function as a sunglass. If you're going to put something on your eyes to protect you, you might as well have it be real protection. I also like that they have 100% UV protection, so maybe my eyes won't age as rapidly. I don't know. Hopefully there's no eye doctors watching this, because I'm sure you're going to say, nope, you're screwed, dude, you're too old. And the last bit to go over is my own personal growth lessons. As I said, I was not at this class as media, so I wasn't covering the class. I was there as a student. As a student, what really stuck with me, where'd it go, was trigger control. Obviously I can control a trigger and I can run a gun, but over the years I've had many class teach me to trap the trigger and shoot from reset. If you're not familiar, see if I can show you here, that is, and check it one more time that we're clear. You fire, the gun cycles, you keep the trigger pinned to the rear, you ease to the click, and then fire again. And that had served me well. And it wasn't until the Guardian Conference, another training event, that one's more like a buffet, and you end up with a sampling of 12 different classes out of like 36 different options over the course of 3 days. So each one's 2 or 4 hours. One of the instructors there was avidly against that, and was instead insisting that we pull, and you can hold it through recoil, but release and then come back and pull. And I tried it there, and it was kind of working, but it was only a 2-hour block out of all of the classes that I took, and so my brain dumped it and I forgot about it until this class, where they hit on it and I was going to be there all day. So I gave it a try all day, and to my surprise, I was quicker and smoother doing that. Now, it's not a pull, slap the finger out. I did that in the beginning to break the habit. Like, I would ping my fingernail against the trigger guard, but fire and just lift off and then come back to it. And what that does is give you the exact same trigger sensation every time. And amazingly, it's faster than telling your finger to change directions. So that was a big one for me that I'm going to continue to try. In fact, this morning I filmed 2 reviews, the Gun Power Mark 23 Q100 and Mark 23 K100, and I did my best to stick to it through that review. You'll see the accuracy in those. And the other big lesson learned, or personal growth thing, I guess you could say, comes back to dots. Still not convinced. And this has nothing to do with the fact that my RFX 11 was giving me trouble enough that I said, I'll just move to the other gun. It came from being on the line with everyone else running dots, and running the same drills and noticing speed. And this, I'm going to try, if I stand back, maybe this will make sense. So your hands meet, you're pressing out, you're taking up slack, you're on target. For everyone else with a dot, and even just now, it's not until you start to clench your support hand that the dot comes into picture and on target. With iron sights, I'm already building my sight picture from here before I've even fully extended, because I don't have to wait for that to come back, that dot to come into picture. Is that because personally I haven't presented and drawn with a dot as many times as I have irons? Quite possibly. But it's also the fact that an iron sight, especially a nice fiber optic like I have on the Bull, is always within the frame of reference as your gun is pressing out. It isn't, I'm looking through the glass, waiting for the dot to come down, there's my dot. And so what I found was I was able to get my first shot off a little bit quicker than those waiting for their dot to settle. To counter my own argument, at a distance, at defensive distances, rushing to a shot, meaning you're so close in that the threat's on top of you, does that really matter? Probably not. However, if that doesn't really matter, then neither does your sight system in the first place. So, again, I'm not totally convinced on dot use. I'm sure this is going to be a controversial bit. I saved it for the end, because those of you who watched to the end are the more intelligent of the crew. You didn't zone out because I didn't have giggles and explosions and fancy, I mean, I do have some fancy lighting, but you get my point. This isn't a sexy video. You guys are the intelligent ones, and you're probably the ones that are going to have some good thoughts on this. I'd love to hear it. Again, I don't think there's a wrong answer. I just think there are different answers for different reasons. So share your thoughts on that. Also, any questions you have about the gear or anything like that, please check the pinned comment over at gbgunsdepot.com is the full write-up, but I'm also happy to answer questions here if they're not immediately answered by what I've already written. So that's my report from that class. I believe I will attend again when I can. Those classes fill up pretty quickly. This one, for some reason, wasn't, which I lucked out on because it was very affordable and easily within range. And when I had a last minute, you know what, I'm doing it, there was still a seat there for me. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.